The Brent Key era begins for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets in 2023. This is a Yellow Jackets team that a lot of people have dubbed as a significant ACC sleeper, and it's easy to see why. With a new head coach coming in, yes, some talent leaves, but a lot of transfers come in. Recruiting is back on the rise. Georgia Tech is a team that can wreak havoc for a lot of teams in the ACC. Can this team make a run? Maybe not to an ACC championship game, but back to the postseason here in 2023? Or is Georgia Tech doomed for a long rebuilding process? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel. I'm predicting each and every one of the 133 FBS level college football teams this summer. That means I am doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. We're almost done with the Power 5 schools. Got a few more to do here in the ACC. Moving on to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Hey, again, if you guys can subscribe, we just passed 1,000. I want to continue to grow this channel. Thank you so much. But if you're not able to do so, you can support my channel in more ways. You're doing one right now by watching the video, and you can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else that you are willing and able to do to help interact and support the channel. How do we do preview predictions around here? Well, we go through a roster overview, look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Yellow Jacket football schedule and giving it the game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets here in 2023 quarterback position. While your leading passer in Jeff Sims is going to be gone. Not only your leading passer, but was pretty good out of the backfield with his legs as well. Stats didn't really show it last year, but a good dual threat quarterback who's transferred over to Nebraska. I'll read the stat line for you now. Passing end, 1,115 yards on 58.5% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I don't think his stats were magnified to his ability here with this Georgia Tech program. On the rushing end, team's third leading rusher, 302 yards and 1 touchdown. I think will be a really good piece for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think underrated in a lot of people's minds based on what he did with this Georgia Tech team. However, even though Jeff Sims is gone, some pretty solid pieces do return at the quarterback position, as well as the transfer coming in. You got a couple of Zachs in the building here, Zach Pyron and Zach Gibson. Gibson, 589 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions last year, and Pyron, 565 yards, 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions last season. Pyron had a completion percentage of 5 points greater than Gibson, and then Haynes King is a transfer coming over from Texas A&M that, hey, look, if none of those guys are going to be the starter, it'll probably end up being Haynes King. Your guess is as good as mine. I think those are 3 pretty solid options for the Yellow Jackets in the quarterback room. We'll see what happens with the quarterback battle at Georgia Tech this summer and fall. In the running back room, well, you do lose your leading rusher in Hassan Hall, 521 yards and a touchdown last year. And then Dylan McDuffie didn't get a lot of carries last year, only 22, and didn't really perform as well. 45 yards and a touchdown for him last season, but nonetheless, he is transferred on to a different program. You do return your second leading rusher, though, and Dante Smith, 420 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jamie Felix also comes back to this team, and you do get a transfer coming over by the name of Travion or Trey Cooley. He's coming over by way of Louisville, a former 4-star out of high school. Wide receiver room, Malachi Carter and Nate McCullum, your 2 leading receivers last year. McCullum, 655 yards, 3 touchdowns. Carter, 342 yards and 2 touchdowns, are both going to be gone off of this team. Your really only notable returner in my mind is Malik Rutherford, because you get a lot of transfers coming in to help boost up this wide receiver room. Dominic Blaylock is a very talented, former highly rated 4-star coming out of high school, transferring over from Georgia. You also have Christian Leary, who is transferring over to this program from Alabama, another highly rated 4-star. And then Abdul Janae, I believe is how you say that last name. I do apologize for any mispronunciations, but he's transferring over from an FCS program in Duquesne. Should be a nice little boost in the wide receiver room for them as well. Tight end wise, you do lose your third leading receiver, leading tight end EJ Jenkins, 317 yards on only 316 yards, on only 17 catches, 3 touchdowns for him. However, Dylan Leonard does come back, 11 catches, 90 yards. But another Georgia transfer comes over, should be that starting tight end as well, as in Brett Seether, who transfers in. 3-star out of high school, around the same rating as a transfer. Probably will be that starter in the tight end room for Georgia Tech. On the offensive line, Pierce Quick and R.J. Adams leaves. However, Jordan Williams, Paul Chio, Weston Franklin, and Jakai Leftwich all come back to the offensive line. So some solid pieces on the offensive side. Moving over to the defensive side, on the defensive line, you lose a pretty talented player there in Keon White. 7.5 sacks, which led the team last season, was the team's third leading tackler with 54. And overall, a very, very talented player that leaves this Yellow Jacket defense. However, Kyle Kennard, Daquan Dowse, Noah Collins, Macias Scott, and others will be returning for this defensive line, and you do get some transfers coming in to help boost it as well. Etinosa Rubin is going to be coming over by way of the Clemson Tigers. And then Eddie Kelly comes over as well. Rubin, by the way, a 3-star rated transfer, and Kelly, also a 3-star rated transfer coming over by way of South Florida, or USF. In the linebacking unit, well, your top 2 leading tacklers last season are both gone. Allende Ile and Charlie Thomas, 118 tackles for Allende and Charlie, 112 respectively. But your top 2 leading tacklers, 2 very good players, you lose both of them in the linebacking unit. That is tough. You do return Tatum Trenelius, believe I said the last name right, but again, probably didn't, so I apologize. And some transfers coming in. Braylon Oliver is coming in, as well as Andre White to help boost up that linebacking unit. Andre White going to be coming over from Texas A&M, and Braylon Oliver over by way of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. In the defensive back room, Zamari Walton is going to be gone. Pretty good piece for them. 36 tackles, 6 pass defended, and an interception for them last season. However, LaMiles Brooks, Clayton Powell-Lee, KJ Wallace, Miles Sims, among others, are going to be some good returners in the secondary for this Georgia Tech team. Brooks did lead the team last year with 7 passes defended and 3 interceptions, as well as a pick 6. Your new head coach in town is Brent Key, offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner, and your defensive coordinator is Andrew Thacker. As we take a look at the Yellow Jackets football schedule in 2023, hey, any game at home will be underlined, and any game on the road will be in italics of the slanted text. Neutral site games listed accordingly. Any game in green is a game I think Georgia Tech will win easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, okay, they're going to struggle a little bit. Maybe the other team's really competitive, really good, but I do see it as a Yellow Jacket win nonetheless, and red is a loss. Very interesting game here in week 1. The Friday of week 1 neutral site game in Atlanta against the Louisville Cardinals. Now, Louisville, much like Georgia Tech, another team that a lot of people have as a sleeper in the ACC, although there are some higher expectations surrounding the program in Louisville than what we have here in Georgia Tech with Jeff Brom, Brian Brom, the offensive coordinator, my apologies, with Jeff Brom coming in as the head coach to his alma mater and hometown team, a program he knows really well, bringing a familiar quarterback with him. Jack Plummer comes over by way of the Cal Golden Bears, formerly the Purdue Boilermakers. He's got 25 transfers coming in, a lot of good talent offensively, defensively, but I do think this is going to be a very close, competitive game, but I think Louisville's got a little bit too much talent for Georgia Tech. I do believe they're going to walk away victors of that neutral site game. However, don't be surprised if Georgia Tech starts off the 2023 campaign with a win against the Louisville team that has a lot of transfers, a lot of overhaul, new coaching staff, still maybe trying to get things figured out. The Yellow Jackets will be able to beat South Carolina State. Should be no trouble there before you get a really tough non-conference game on the road against Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a loaded quarterback room. I think they're going to be very, very good this year. They're definitely a team that, if everything goes right, can contend in the SEC. And I do not believe Georgia Tech, especially on the road, matches up talent-wise there. Ole Miss will be able to win that game. And then on the road at Wake Forest, I think is a winnable game for this Yellow Jackets team. However, I still do see it as a loss for Georgia Tech. When you take a look at that Wake Forest team overall, hey, Sam Harmon, A.T. Perry are gone. You lose a lot of explosiveness off of that offense. However, Mitch Griffiths is there. Still a lot of good talent in that wide receiver room. And some key contributors on defense gone, yes, but they are getting some transfers and other players that are coming back to help be still a pretty solid defense there. I think Dave Clawson still got a really good group there. I think Mitch Griffiths is going to be a solid quarterback for them. Again, he's got a lot of weapons. I think Georgia Tech will lose that game on the road against Wake Forest, but they will bounce back and beat the Bowling Green Falcons, another a team in the Mid-American Conference that, well, hey, has definitely seen a rise as of late, right? Bowling Green is a team that is only getting better and better. but I do not believe will be up to standard of Georgia Tech. Now, they did pull off an upset. Was it last year, a couple years ago? Can't remember when they ended up beating Minnesota. So maybe there's an upset in the cards here. I just don't see it. I think Georgia Tech will be able to win that game. I do not believe they will be able to go on the road and beat Miami. However, I think that is a supremely talented Miami team. Tyler Van Dyke struggled last year, yes, but is coming back, has a new offensive coordinator, did not work out with Josh Gaddis, so the new offensive coordinator going to try to spark some life into Tyler Van Dyke in that, and that Miami offense has some good transfers coming in. That defense getting some nice talent as well. Miami's going to be a really talented, really good team this year. They're going to be motivated coming off a disappointing year one under Super Mario Cristobal, and Georgia Tech will lose that game. So, hey, what I'm predicting, only 2 wins through the first 6. You get your bye week. You get a chance to recoup. And the second half of the schedule definitely has a lot of tricky games, but is definitely manageable for this team. When you look at this game against Boston College, I think it is a win for Georgia Tech here. Look, Boston College is losing Phil Dracovic, Zay Flowers. That rushing attack was not very good last season. I believe Georgia Tech will be able to slow down that rush game. I believe their offense will be able to take it to that Eagles defense. Georgia Tech is going to win some games that maybe they're not favored by. Maybe this is one of them, but Boston College really struggled last year. They're losing some good pieces, and if they don't fix things, they could struggle again this year. I see Georgia Tech being able to win that game there for their first win in ACC play in 2023. And there's another winnable game here against North Carolina. However, I just don't see it. North Carolina is a very, very talented team this year. Offensively. Defensively, they were atrocious last season. A lot needs to happen in order for them to really turn things around. They got to get the ship righted really fast with North Carolina there. But when you take a look at this North Carolina offense, Drake May and company are very explosive. I think they're going to be way too much for this Georgia Tech defense to handle. And I don't think this Yellow Jacket offense is capable of putting up enough points that it needs to be able to beat that North Carolina team. Again, with how bad the North Carolina defense is, if it, or I guess was last year, if that continues this year, maybe it could be a competitive game. I still think it will be. I think Georgia Tech's got a lot of nice pieces offensively, but they can't keep up with the dynamic explosiveness of the North Carolina Tar Heels. On the road against Virginia is another game I could see them dropping, but I think Virginia is going to have a struggle of a time this year. Tony Elliott's group is losing a lot. It's also going to be a very emotional season for them, given what happened at the university this past winter. All thoughts and prayers with the Virginia football family and friends and university and everything. Talk about it more when we get into my Virginia video. But when you take a look at this Virginia team on paper, you lose Brennan Armstrong. On offense, probably your best player. Defensively, you lose your best player in Fentrell Cypress, and really don't see a lot happening for Virginia this year. So I got Georgia Tech being able to go on the road, win that game. However, you will lose to Clemson. Clemson's going to have a revamped offense this year. I think they're going to be pretty good on the offensive end with Garrett Riley as their new OC. Defensively, that Clemson defense is going to live up to standards as well. You're not going on the road and beating Clemson. As competitive and close as this game was, it's not happening this year. I also believe you will be losing to Syracuse, although, again, that is another winnable game. Syracuse is losing some pieces on defense, and they're losing Sean Tucker, something that this Georgia Tech defense can definitely take advantage of. But with Garrett Schrader, Oronde Gadsden, and still some nice pieces on defense, don't see you beating Syracuse there, even though the game is at home. And then at home against Georgia, you're just not beating them. Georgia is supremely talented to a lot of teams in the nation, not just Georgia Tech. It's been a one-sided rivalry forever. That will not change this year. Georgia's one of, if not the best team in the entire nation. So I got Georgia Tech sitting at 4-8. Now, this is an ACC sleeper, and I recognize I could be sleeping on Georgia Tech. I could definitely see 5-7. Maybe if a couple things go right, they pull off an upset win, get to 6-6. But there are a lot of winnable games on the schedule. Do not surprise if Georgia Tech is in the postseason this season. But like I'm sitting at 4-8, let me know your thoughts on the Yellow Jackets in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.